A time frame was laid out in State Supreme Court in Rome just about an hour ago, suggesting time frames for recanvassing last Tuesday's election and counting thousands of absentee ballots.
And the court action was brought by Anthony Brindisi, currently ahead of Claudia Tenney by roughly 1,300 votes in the 22nd Congressional District race, with more than 16,000 absentees to be counted. We have News Channel 2's Jolene Ferris live here in the studio, just back from that court proceeding. Jolene, what can you tell us?
Thanks, Kristen. The Brindisi campaign brought the action, but what was decided just in about the past hour or so was a blanket decision that applies to all races on the ballot in that district. It's basically a time frame for recanvassing and counting absentees.
Representatives from 7 of the 8 counties in the 22nd Congressional District were either in the state Supreme Courtroom in Rome this afternoon or conference called in. Also on the phone, representatives for the State Board of Elections. After a brief court appearance, the attorneys for the candidates and the counties left the room and came back about an hour later with a time frame for that highly anticipated recanvass, read by the attorney for the Brindisi campaign.
Herkimer County will begin Thursday at 9 a.m. Oneida County will begin tomorrow at 9:30 a.m.
Here's what happens at the Oneida County Board of Elections tomorrow morning, starting at 9:30.
Tomorrow morning at 9:30, they'll start the recanvass. They'll probably start with Utica 1-1, 1st District, 1st Ward. What they'll do is they'll compare the tape that came from the voting machine to the statement of canvass that was signed on election night. Once that's done, then they'll move on to the absentee and affidavit ballots. Now, these envelopes have already been cleared and screened by the deputy commissioners and the other Board of Elections inspectors. So the ones that they will have there are the ones that they're planning on counting at that.
And believe it or not, even though we were in a state Supreme Courtroom, the lawyers said after what was decided here today, not necessarily that different from what they would normally do. There just seems to be like a heightened focus on making sure everything's done right and properly. And
we should be clear that Anthony Brindisi is the one that brought this to the
yes,
courts.
I think petitioner is the name, but they said again, really the objective, making sure every vote is counted and everything's done properly.
And security-wise, we talked about yesterday the impounding of the absentees and the voting machine. Security is tight.
It is, and they just mentioned today that they had changed the locks at the BOE after election night. We didn't know that. Want to mention quickly that all the counties have to have their results to the state by the 1st, but because it's a Saturday, it's the 3rd. No one today foresees it going past that, but you never know.
And happening this week in Washington, it's orientation week for all of the new lawmakers. Anthony Brindisi, we did put out a text message. He was not in court today because he's in Washington for orientation, and this is when newly elected lawmakers will have their official photos taken. They're going to meet their colleagues. They also vote on their leadership.
Jolene Ferris joining us live here tonight.